Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, John.
Hi, Charlene. How are you?
I am so happy to see everybody.
Hi, Chris.
Hello.
So let's see, we've got Dan, and who are the people down at the end?
Okay, just a minute. Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm
we can hear you fine.
Char, and this is our first hybrid meeting, and the microphone here is right here. So, Jackie, you say something. Can John hear you? You say hi, I'm Jackie. Hi, John, it's Jackie Swan here.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
See, that's from this microphone here. It's called a condenser microphone. So why doesn't everyone introduce themselves? And if they want to speak, just project or come closer. And you guys, everybody introduce yourselves. And I'm going to say thank you. That's it. Hi, I'm Celia.
Hello.
Gary Swan in the background there.
Hi, Gary.
Hey, Gary.
Candace Roberts. Hi, Candace.
Hi, Candace.
Hi, John.
Oh, Michael Ward, Cargo Bike Mike.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, Michael.
Jim Wright.
Hi, Jim.
Dan Schubart.
So, sorry, who's next to Dan?
Rob Carlson.
Rob.
Oh, hi, Rob.
John, if you put, do you want me to spotlight the main room and then it would be big? Shall I do that?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Ah, that's better.
Okay, I'm spotlighting it for you, so it's big for you, but for us, we see it small so we see your faces.
Okay.
Cool.
Go smile, yeah, okay.
Gotta love that technology.
This is what we're going to be battling with at VIU. I think we're doing some classes that'll have both in-class instruction at the same time as Zooming. So it'll be interesting to see how that works and how this works. Cool. Well, shall we get started? It's after 6.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Well, Zoom is still pretty good because it's allowing me to be at this meeting and then another one at 7 o'clock. So.
Awesome. Well, we've done our introductions, so that's great. I'll just do an acknowledgement that we're conducting our business on the unceded territories, traditional territories of the Sishat and Huipachesset people, and we share and live on these territories with them and with their permission. Moving on from that, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge who is not here, and that is, of course, Edna. It's sad that it's just sad, but it'll be a different group, I think, without Edna, obviously, and she, I think, was someone who believed passionately in our little endeavor, and she worked tirelessly on all sorts of things for transition towns and for many other initiatives in our community. The minutes will certainly never be as good as they were with her amazing attention to detail. Yes.
Gary Swan here.
Yeah.
I a little bit I could say about my point. She introduced Louis and myself to a black farmer just south of ski place, Whistler, and between the Squamish, Highland Valley, farm. Vancouver came from a very rich family in Germany, and got a nice farm and had people working on it. But he also offered biodynamic training courses in the spring and in the fall. Louis and I went one fall, and Louis went for 5 or 6 times. Eventually became one of the talkers at the Vancouver's efforts. And so it was Edna's initiative that pointed us in that direction that says, we know how to make a farm self-reliant, more or less. Not that we've got there. We still have to buy a lot of fossil fuel. But it does make the possibility that basically your farm around compost makes it possible that this community could be food self-reliant to a big degree. And the more people that can grow more food, the better it will be. And Edna was, I think, instrumental in I really admired her. She did a real big thing, in my opinion, for the valley. So that's all I needed to say.
Thanks, Gary.
You know, I hate to be a pain in the butt, but you know, you people back at the table there, if you could move up to the main table and still maintain your distance, we'd be able to hear you a lot better, because it's quite a distance to the microphone. You know, if it's possible, I mean, even if you just move the chairs back a ways, you could still be physically distanced.
It's Celia. Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yep.
A little better, yeah.
Okay.
How about these 2 chairs across from Dan here?
I just want to honor Edna because I've known her from a lot of the other groups and things. And while other people have things to say, I'd just like to give out a flower to everybody.
Well, I'd like to make a motion
Go for it, John.
that this group carry on through thick and thin in memory of Edna, no matter what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll second that.
Good. Well, would anyone like to say anything, or shall we carry on in that sense?
I would like to say something. I
Go
turned
for
up the volume on the microphone. And this is Edna. And she recycled everything. Reduce, reuse, recycle. And I've known her since I was 15. She was my assistant librarian. And so I've got this sign, Welcome Alberni Valley Transition Town Society. And every time I see it, I see her warm heart, her dark brown eyes. And on the back it says, donations for Gardening for Life presentation with Gary Swan. Because she recycled everything. So I've had this close to 11 years. It's hard plastic. I keep it in a special place, and we'll keep it for every meeting. It reminds me of her tender heart. And yeah.
Thank you, Char.
Well, Edna was always an inspiration to me. I just could not believe how hard she worked on so many things in this community. And I agree with what's been said before, that we're going to really miss her, but we're going to have to work hard to to make up for the fact that she's not here with us. Only in spirit. I know when back in the 80s, when all that terrible problems were going on down in Central America, I remember what they used to do when they had their meetings. They'd take roll, and when someone's name came up that had been murdered or disappeared, they said the name, and everyone said "Présent."
Hey, Edna.
Go ahead now. All right. Well, we'll move along from there, and maybe at the end, if anyone would like to share anything more, please do. She meant a lot to a great many people. So we should move on to, I'm just looking at the agenda here. We'll do the Food Hub report first. It's all online, but is there anything specific, Rob or John, that you would like to bring up from the food group?
Well, unfortunately, I wasn't at the last meeting, so I can't really say too much about it. I don't know.
Rob?
Did you want to make any comment about the food group report?
Not so much. We didn't have a meeting in August. We kind of got outside of the departure. I think a meeting in August, but we are going to be having a meeting in September. And then we're going to be deciding where to go.
Okay. Moving on then. Gleaning project. Rob, again, we'll go there. I know you have an update for us.
Project was temporarily stopped for our time. The beginning of our site were not being able to carry on. Having the people actually come to the pit. And so when I said to them, if I don't have enough people to attend the pit, then we shut it down. Some people say, oh, don't do that. My assistant is also stepped up and offered to take on more of the work. We call it up like that. And then it's the same problem with people last time. So I just called for an expert tomorrow night to see how many people show up for that. Right now, it's kind of been a holding pattern. I'm not taking on any more homeowner requests because it's not fair to the homeowner to be signing up and me having to say later on, I don't have it right. So it's a battle right now. See where it goes from here. So for now, we're going to see what happens.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything for the gleaning project? Dan?
No, I'm just going to ask Rob to see me about some money things.
Okay. So our big topic for the day probably is the fall fair. Assuming it will go on in person. I'm not entirely sure if they're actually having a booth set up or not. Dan, do you know?
I don't. All I've heard is that they're going to have a midway.
Anyone around the room know if they're actually doing booths this year? I kind of don't.
Why don't I phone Ann Siddle?
Okay, that sounds good. My impression is that they're not. but that may change. I don't know. Circumstances seem to change. If there is going to be a booth, obviously we won't have a meeting before the fall fair, so it would be very good for us to be able to get some people at the booth and setting up and all that kind of stuff. I would be happy to create a volunteer list, so that if we do end up having a booth, we'll be able to have some people at it. We would love for anyone involved in transition towns to take a turn at the table. We have lots of good stuff to hand out people, and we can work on some stuff. I was in another meeting this morning with Jim and the Ocean Friendly PA folks, and hoping to get some information and pamphlets and whatnot from them, so that we could potentially have information about that group as well. So it's always a great way to get the word out about transition towns and all the various things we're doing, Cycle Alberni and the food group and everything. Especially the food group, we've always had a big presence in the ag building. So yeah. So whether we'll figure out if there's actually booths happening this year, and if there is, I'll go ahead and start making a volunteer list, and I'll send that out to the mailing list so that people can hopefully sign on.
I'm sorry, Chris, which group were you meeting with today?
The ocean friendly plastics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, plastics group.
Yeah.
We were just having our little meeting after our last event. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah. Okay. So that'll be the fall fair. So hopefully it happens. It would be nice to be able to see people, and kind of get the word out. It's been so quiet for the past year, so that would be really great. Okay. So next up on our list here, we have an AGM, or we haven't had an AGM for the society for a good 18 months or so. Basically since the pandemic has broken out, we've just sort of been waiting for the opportunity to be able to have it face to face. We think that's very important. We are tentatively scheduling it for October, so the what would normally be the October meeting, October 20th, will hopefully be the AGM. So we'll need to send out a notice officially in the month prior, so sometime in September. But that's the hope, is that we can have an AGM hopefully at Char's on October 20th, and we'll need directors, and we need to fill out our ranks and hopefully get lots of people and interest and kind of get things rolling again. So just a notice to that. Anything, Dan or Rob, you'd like to say about the AGM?
I think we need to talk it up. We need to make sure that people are making the connection between our various crises that we're facing and, what we can do about all of those crises on a local basis. And that's sort of what building resilience is, and that's what transitions is supposed to be about. And I think we need to start putting bugs in the ears of city council, and possibly going and talking to other organizations as well. And I would really like to emphasize that Transition Towns is looking to work collaboratively with other organizations. So looking for ways that we can pitch in and put our heads together and come up with better ideas than doing what we're doing now.
That's great, Dan. I was just thinking, going back to the fall fair, if we do in fact have some presence there, maybe we should think about using the climate change survey that we've been advertising. I think there's over 70 people or so have done that so far, but we've done surveys at the fall fair with it's a good place to do a survey because you have face-to-face contact with a lot of people, and so anyway, that's just an idea, but it's a real good awareness tool, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Let me make a note of that.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say about the AGM, or just kind of broadening the reach of transition towns and getting the word out and about all of our various issues that we are tackling?
I mean, perhaps if there is a fall fair, maybe we could have some kind of a little subcommittee meeting to just kind of put a booth together.
Yeah, I think we'll probably need to anyway, because it'll take a little work to get all of that squared away and stuff. Yeah, probably a good idea.
Have we had any connection with First Nations?
We haven't officially, no, and that's something that we very much have wanted and need to do. I would really like, especially at our AGM, is to be able to talk about that in great detail, and it would be wonderful to have First Nations representation on our board, and members of the community working with us, and us able to work with their communities. So I would very much like for that to happen, and I think that's something that we really need to focus on in the future.
Maybe we should consider having a First Nations leader come in and speak to us at the AGM. I know there's, we could talk to Judith Sayers, or her sister. Is it Brenda? Is that her name?
Brenda, yeah.
I've heard her speak about climate change and transition issues, and she's a real showstopper.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
if we could
excellent.
get someone like that to come out and get word out into the newspaper, that would, or online too, whatever.
Yeah.
That might get some people out.
Yeah.
And Chris, you probably know Hugh, what's his name? Hugh, who gives the weather.
Hugh Breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Hugh and Jolene Dick, I know very well as well. She's a counselor now on Cochesset Council. So yeah, there's definitely people that we could approach and hopefully come and speak and participate. I mean, it's more than just representation. It's trying to make this a welcoming place for everyone.
I'm sorry, did you have a date for the AGM already?
October 20th.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
And I think we want to look for some youth participation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if maybe we can get a hold of the social justice class at ADSS as they start up in the September, and encourage people to come out.
Good idea.
And Amber at the college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about the AGM or around those topics? Okay. There's a general point here on climate focus. Dan, I think you put that in. Would you like to expand on that? I think I know where you're going to go, but
It just basically we're all confronted with some of the fallout from our lack of action on curbing emissions. And time to strike while the iron is hot along with everything else.
Yeah.
That-
Well, so along that line, and since we do happen to be in an election, now Transition Towns is a fairly strictly nonpartisan organization, and I might add, I think Edna was very much stringent on that, and I totally agree. It's something that gives us strength, and to that end, what would be people's feelings around trying to host a town hall, something like this, probably in person and online, where we could put some focused climate and transition related questions to our candidates and hopefully have them come and address people. That'd be something people would be interested in doing in September.
That's a very good idea, Chris. Very good.
If we're going to do that, we should set a date and get on the agendas of the various candidates.
And Char, if it's possible.
Yes.
I was wondering about dates and looking at the calendar, and I'm thinking the best would probably be early of the last week of the election, which is after the fall fair. So I'm thinking like Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, the September 13, 14, or 15, something like that. That makes sense.
September 15th is Transition Town, so why not?
Oh, good point. That's the third Wednesday. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think Dan, your point is very well taken. I think we should contact them this week and see if we can nail that date down. If there's a problem with one of the candidates that they're already booked for some reason, then I suppose we could look at a different day, but
Yeah.
we should try for the 15th.
Okay. Well, I can go ahead and I'll try to contact the candidates. I know, I think I have the contact information for most of them, or know their names at this point, so that should be easily doable. And we'll go for the 15th, and we'll say, would we do it at 6 o'clock, same sort of thing, just to make it consistent with our meetings, or
I wonder if it wouldn't be better to do it at 7.
do it a little later? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll say tentatively September 15th at 7. I don't suppose anyone knows if the dates for the regular all candidates meetings have been set, if there are going to be any. The chamber usually has one, and sometimes there's others, but
Is there a green candidate?
there is.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen signs for both Gord and Mary
Lee.
Thank you. Yeah, so Gord Johns is NDP, Mary Lee is Conservative. I don't remember the name of the Green candidate. I only just saw the email flash through my inbox yesterday, but there is definitely a Green candidate. And I imagine there will be another candidate as well, either independent or People's Party or whoever. So I'll go ahead and make those connections as soon as I can, and we'll hopefully do that. So that would be fantastic. So what I would love from everyone is ideas on questions. I think it's probably best. Well, I won't say what I think is best. So what do people think? Should we have something where people will be asking questions, or should we have set questions that we could either have on the day or provide beforehand? What are people's thoughts on that?
Well, it should probably be both, so that people who come can have the opportunity to ask a question. But if there's any lack of questions, we should have a list of them. ready to go.
And perhaps each of them be given a certain amount of time to address before questions, so they can actually speak to whatever the title is you might decide on climate change or sustainability or whatever it is. You might decide to skip them.
Yeah, I like the idea. I think it's a really good idea to have both. I worry a little bit because you know, you always need to worry a little bit about moderation and that kind of thing at an all candidates meeting. But I think it would probably be fine. And I do think it's really important that we, as a climate focused event, I think it would be great to have both questions that they could prepare and be able to give us their full answers beforehand, or at least prepare for beforehand, so that they have a little time to figure that out and have their proper policy positions, but also have some questions prepared, like John said, so that you know, if we need to, or if we have a burning question we need to get to them, then we can ask some prepared questions to the group. So maybe what I could ask for people is to put in their questions on the mailing list, and anything that you would like to have addressed, and I'll a few of us will get together and try to collate those, and then we'll draw that up. But first things first, I'll try to get a hold of all the candidates and set that meeting date. So does that make sense? So I think we'll do both, and then be good.
As an alternative, I mean, if we just can't nail them down for our own meeting, I guess we should be prepared to go to whatever all candidates meetings there are with our climate oriented questions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it would be really good as a backup as well, if we can't have a meeting, you know, put out one of those kind of questionnaires that you often see from lobby groups and various groups. Send them to each candidate, and hopefully we'll get an answer back. We can post that online, post that on Facebook, and people can see where people stand that way as well. So lots of ways to get the questions out there, at least. Okay. So there's a general topic here on Transition Town subgroup connections and intergroup promotions. So one of the things that the Rob and Dan and I and Edna have talked about in the past is trying to kind of really galvanize the group and try to get more sort of a critical mass of people in. And I think one way we could really help ourselves to do that is by trying to get all of our subgroups and everyone a little more interconnected and a little more sort of aware of everyone's happenings and able to share information and cross promote all of our groups, transition towns, and make sure that we do that intentionally. But Dan or Rob, do you want to say anything about that?
Well, I would particularly like to see in any public forum where a subgroup is recognized, that there be recognition that the subgroup operates under the auspices of Alberni Valley Transition Towns.
Yeah, it's really important that that everybody, you know, that we do that cross promotion, so that we have the ability to really reach out to different sectors of the community and let people know that there's, there is Cycle Alberni, and there's the plastics group, and there's the food group, and then there's the transition town group as a whole. So it's really important to be able to make those connections, and for people to see it and hear it often, right? Repetition is the biggest thing. So it would be great to be able to increase that. Another idea, and I put this out to the I would address this to the leaders of the various groups, would be that rather than having our different groups in the main meeting on different nights, if we can consider bringing them all onto one night as a way of having the whole group as well as the subgroups sort of in a more connected way, and being able to actually physically be in the same room together. I don't know if it's feasible. It's hard when you have lots of different people and timings and schedules and things, and everybody's really busy. But maybe it would even help a little bit with that, by having one place, one time for 4 meetings instead of 4 different places with 4 different meetings. So put that out there to the food group and the Cycle Alberni and the plastics group. Maybe we can all meet on a day at some point. But that might be something that we can discuss at the AGM and see if we can figure that out. Any thoughts about that, John? Do you think?
Well, I guess there's probably pros and cons. Were you thinking, Chris, that say if we had this meeting at Char's Landing, that each of the groups would meet in a different corner of the room, or how can you envision that working?
Yeah, well, what I was thinking is something like if we did the main meeting either before or after, so that everybody would be able to participate, and then there would be time for the subgroup meetings, either again before or after. So yeah, if we could, I mean, Char's is a pretty big place. It could probably fit enough people or enough space to be able to get everybody in there. But yeah, just to see if we could kind of have it all in one space. I don't know if it would work, but an idea.
Yeah. Another issue is that some people are members of a couple of different groups, so it'd be hard to be in 2 places at once.
Yeah.
And I guess the other thing is that I'm not against what you're saying, but I think the work that goes on in these different groups is pretty intense sometimes, and I think we have to be able to really concentrate and get down to business. And I'm just not sure how that would work if you have 20 different people talking in 4 different groups. So anyway, it's just a thought.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have any thoughts or anything about groups and getting things together? Okay. Yes, sorry, Sharko.
Just to expand on what you're saying, I would really appreciate if the person who submits the subgroup's report could actually attend the meeting, even virtually, as you were doing. Attend the meeting and talk to us in person, is I find a disconnect. I don't feel connected to the food group, although I know Jackie very well. I don't feel connected to what they're accomplishing, because all I see is a footnote in the report. So if someone could even virtually just get on and actually speak to it, I think I would feel better connected. And I say the same for Cycle Alberni. Have the actual person or some representative actually speak to it, so we can ask the person questions about what Cycle Alberni is doing, accomplishing. I feel a disconnect as well, and I support what you're saying.
That's a good point. Thanks, Char. Okay, I have another point here. Active transportation, roundup of happenings here and elsewhere. I'm not sure what that means, Dan, so you're going to have to help me.
Well, coming out of recent meetings, there was a thought that both, excuse me, active transportation and public transit needed to be shaking out a little bit more. And that there are places where this is happening. And so, for instance, you put me in touch with a guy in Victoria, and the idea is that we'll kind of poll what people are doing in other communities and possibly have somebody come to speak to us in the fall, or get together a presentation about what's happening elsewhere so that we can maybe get a little more guidance and start moving forward a little more meaningfully in that area. That's it.
Are you thinking you have speaker and presentation? I assume that's related to the active transportation piece.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be fantastic, especially if we could get folks from City Council. Oh, which reminds me, unfortunately Helen's not here, but it would be great to be able to have someone from a community that's been successful in implementing a lot of that stuff, and bringing them in and having them here for everyone to see. So, any thoughts about? I know the Alberni climate, or sorry, the Cycle Alberni. I'm getting my groups mixed up. Cycle Alberni put out or helped the city engineer with updates to intersections for active transportation. John, do you want to talk a little about that? Kind of what happened?
Yeah, that was very kind of gratifying that the engineer Rob asked us to have some input in that. We had Cycle Alberni had actually had a special meeting. Oh, it was well over a year ago about that. It was shortly after the death of the young man up by Quality Foods there on Dunbar and 10th. And so we had a written report actually in our files, and he had, I can't remember the sequence of events, but I did send that report to Rob Dickinson, the engineer. And so Rob had been out on the street with a consultant from a traffic consultant from Victoria, and they were looking at the intersections, and they came up with a series of recommendations. And for just the two intersections, Dunbar and 10th Avenue and Redford, both of which had cycling fatalities over the last few years, where the ghost spikes are, obviously. So they wanted our input on the recommendations. So we put out the call to all the cyclists in town, and we had a small meeting, get together and talk about that. And we did send Rob some recommendations. And I emailed him today to see where that process is at in terms of reviewing the intersections, and I haven't heard back from him yet. So I don't think anything really has happened. I think the plan is that he will kind of finalize his recommendations and then take it to City Council. And my hope is that that we could go, as many of us as would like to, hopefully a good sized group, go and attend the council meeting and maybe have a delegation that same night, because I think it does help to achieve goals with City Council if you've got a bunch of people sitting in front of them, and that they know what we want. So I'll certainly keep this group informed of what that process is like. Yeah, so that's good. Thanks for asking, Chris. I was going to try to mention that anyway. And while you got me, I don't know if you were you gonna ask for a Cycle Alberni report or?
Well, I did. It was supposed to be published on the web today.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, Dan, I didn't get it in. The only other thing I was gonna say is that they've got dates now for Go by Bike Week in the fall, and it's gonna be a 2-week period this time. Well, it seems like in the fall they do 2 weeks, in the spring they do 1. So it's from September 27th to October 10th. And I had an opportunity to order some posters the other day. So I ordered 25 posters for Go by Bike Week. And as well, Candace, I was going to get back to you about this anyway, but I ordered 5 different kits for the schools. So between you and me, maybe we can distribute those to the schools when they come in. And that's about it for now.
That's great, John. Yeah, it's already coming up fast. The Go by Bike Week, so that's great. I guess yeah, you weren't at the meeting. I think it was on Tuesday. Alberni Climate Action Group had a meeting with Rob Dickinson. They're meeting quite regularly with him at the city, and I was there as well this week. And he did mention the report there. I think he said that it was going to come to the September 7th meeting for council. So we'll probably want to organize around that date, I think. But yeah, it's great that they're finally taking some action on dangerous intersections in town and putting some focus on cycling and pedestrian safety. Long overdue, and we have it always sticks in my mind when I was on the transportation committee. The representative from ICBC always described the Port Alberni streets as Port Alberni wide, because we basically have the widest streets in the entire province, and extremely dangerous as a result, especially for cyclists and pedestrians. So yeah, it's good that that's getting some look at. Hopefully in time we can get some physical barriers and things like that, but bit by bit we have to work at what we can get, right? So it's great. So that's active transportation. That's all I have as far as the agenda. Rob, do you want to, I know you submitted the financials on the mailing list, and I will put those up on the website, but is there anything that you would like to say specifically about financials?
You want to talk about the treasurer's report?
Oh, the treasurer's report, I've sent to the email there. As I keep saying, we have money. Some groups have more money than others.
It's already posted, Chris.
Yeah.
So transition towns itself is starting to get a little bit low on bank account balance. So transition itself is going to have to start looking at generating some funds of some kind. You can pay people up to membership fees, which should be coming up at the AGM. Or looking for funding elsewhere, but most funding is capped to cover. So if we get some funding, we need to start looking at what we can use in order to clear that funding. And added to for all of our green, technology, all of them fund attack process. Kinds of uses to very on the money project that we're working on. sort of the treasurer report in a nutshell. We're not bankrupt, but we're not yeah,
Cool. That's all I have for the agenda. So if anyone would like to contribute anything or has anything to say about anything that we got going on the transition towns, now's the time.
So you guys want to have some plans put together to ask the local political parties what kind of questions in climate change should be asked of people. So we're gonna submit that by email just to you guys. Okay.
Yes, please. That would be wonderful.
All right.
So Michael, I think I'd like to have you make a few comments, in terms of that email you sent me about the Somas Mill lands and the sea level rise.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Now there's two different, we're gonna be able to connect two dots here. I feel like China got, that agricultural state in China got 1 year's worth of rain in 3 days, right? We get 75, 78 inches of rain a year. If that happens in 3 days, Third Avenue is gonna have a problem, right? Now, that's one side. There's going to be the inconsistent rainfall that we're experiencing around the world. Then there's the sea level rise, which, according to the IPCC report, they're saying 3 feet, 10 feet by 2100. It doesn't just automatically on 2099, it's going to jump. It's going to slowly jump. So we're probably going to see flooding down on Third Avenue. So I feel like $5 million is an awful lot of money to put into something that may be a 5 or 10 year lifespan. And then I thought about this. I thought about how the city apparently has been talking about connecting 10th Avenue to Johnson for 30 years. I've only been here for 4 or 5 years, but other people told me they talked about that before. Third Avenue might be a not necessarily a good escape route in maybe my daughter's lifetime, maybe even my lifetime. And maybe connecting Johnson to 10th Avenue also helps the people who want to try to bike. One of my neighbors has worked for GM for 25 years. He's got a lot of cars, but he actually told me, because he knows where I am now, that he tried to get to work and he just couldn't do it on foot or bike because of that crazy, if you go through the that trail, what is it, the Rogers Creek Park?
Scott Kenny.
That's an insane, what is that, 18% slope. So if you want to discourage people from getting out of the car, maybe that's a $20 million, maybe a $30 million project, but we're not talking about a 5-year project. We're talking about our kids and our grandkids' futures if they want to live here. 10th Avenue straight through. Which the other part of my email was water. I'm having trouble keeping my garden hydrated with these water restrictions, and I realized that if this is according to BC Hydro's PDF file from 2014 about what's going to happen to our hydro system. They say we're going to get 20% more rain in the winter and 50% less in the summer. Well, if I can collect apparently 80,000 liters off half my, 80,000 liters off half my roof, that would get me through 3 or 4 bad months in the summer. And honestly, for me, that's probably my next purchase is spend $2,000 on a 1,000 gallon or 2,000 gallon cistern to take you through the summer, because I'm almost there. I don't have a car. I fed myself for 6 months last year off my small property, and this heat wave, by the way, it's kind of freaking me out even more because I lost half my crop, which ended up being 2 months of food for me. And all I can think of now is water security. And I think if you want to start at the bare bones of survival, that's where I would go. I would say, get everyone water secure, and then start working up from there. Have you guys ever had a tier 3 drought in Port Alberni?
I don't believe we have.
Well, there's tier 1, 2, tier 3. Tier 3, you can still water your garden. But then pretty much everything else is off the list, right? No, and I still see guys washing their cars. 3 of my neighbors have green lawns right now in tier 2. But you see the guys with the brown lawns, they know they're allowed to do it, but they don't do it because it's a moral thing, right? And I think when, you know, it sets an example. Actually, I do know one of these neighbors with the green lawn actually told me yesterday that we're not having warming, we're gonna have an ice age. You know that, you've probably heard it, you've seen it in the news. We're gonna have an ice age, you know, and I was like, okay, you know, we're having an ice age. It's like 43 degrees this last month, and we're gonna have an ice age, okay. You know, I don't know, maybe they are. Here's the thing, and when it comes to questions, it's like if you don't believe in climate change, even though all the science says it, you're basically flipping a coin. And if I'm wrong, if I'm totally wrong because I believe the science, what have I given up? I gave up my car, which is it's a little bit of a convenience. I can't go to the lake whenever I feel like it, but it's not the end of my life. In fact, our family's quite happy with what we do. But are you willing to like flip a coin on your kid's future, maybe their premature life? Like, that's a big deal.
So,
Absolutely.
Chris, I was wondering if it would be worthwhile for one of us, you know, whether you want to or somebody else, contacting Tim Ply and just having a brief chat with him about, you know, has council actually considered the climate change issues of that Somas Mill site, you know?
Yeah, that's a good starting point, right? I mean,
Yeah.
who's been here the long? I mean, how long have you been in town, John? Like a long time.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
How long have you been in
town?
Oh, 35 years.
I've asked this question to a few other people, but I did see a video of Third Avenue flooding back in 2014. Has it been flooding more, or like is there any change in pattern?
They fixed it.
Like from one of the side rivers, right? Or
Yeah, it used to flood every year for many, many years.
Oh,
They
yeah.
had a big grant program, huge. It's remarkable what they've done.
So since then,
Yeah.
it's like.
Yeah, there were a few. Well, there were a few really nasty storms in, I want to say 2008, 2009, something like that. Took down trees in Stanley Park, all that kind of stuff, and it caused a huge amount of flooding, 2 or 3 times in about the span of 5 years down there. And after that, the city put in all the work that they did on Dry Creek there. That's what precipitated all that. And it seems to have worked, but I totally agree. I think you're absolutely right that, you know, it's a starting point, and those waterfront lands, you know, they could act as a barrier. They could act as a way to slow down the water. I mean, we're talking both sea level and flooding, and tsunamis too. I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have have a little bit more of a barrier between us and the 20-foot wave that's coming at us. So, so there's lots of reasons I think that the city could look at developing those lands in a way that would be more climate conscious. As for Tim Ply, I actually just heard he's not in the office right now, but I only know because I got an auto reply from him. But I'll take note of the date that it said that he's returning, and I will call him or email him on the date he returns and see what he has to say around sort of the climate implications of the waterfront lands. Thanks for that, Sean.
I think Mike has made about 4 important things in what he said there.
Absolutely.
All of them need
Yeah.
way more action. They all deserve a lot of attention and some of them can be dealt with the various groups that we already have. But there's a couple like the new plan that I saw in the paper with apartments on the waterfront in that area, to me is quite insane. It is complete climate denialism, and it's tsunami denialism.
Yeah.
I mean, there will be a tsunami here someday soon.
Yeah.
And CBC News and an American paper covered stranded assets. So all these, humans live near water on purpose. We need access to water. So all the biggest cities are very close to water, and there's going to be Florida. The most expensive properties will not be insurable, and they'll probably be underwater very soon, which is technically happening now. And Canada covered it too, where it's going to be hard to get insurance. Even when I bought a house here, our realtor said you can't get insurance if you go live on Gertrude or anything down there by the bridge.
Floodplain.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go on a little side note too. One of my neighbors is a forestry engineer, and he's twice now in the last 2 months, he's told me he's concerned about the Bainford Lake a reservoir because they're logging above it. And that's not a big reservoir. I thought about this. We either have to make sure we have a little bit bigger reservoir, like Victoria did 15 years ago. They increased the reservoir so they didn't have a problem when we were still living there, when the rest of the island did. And if you can't make the reservoir bigger, let's try to capture this water in more local cisterns and let people, so if you want to water your lawn, water it with your own cistern water, right? Don't take it from the public supply.
So, talking about the water thing, that is saving water is a very good idea. And talking about the having the candidates come, I'm just thinking aloud. We lived for 5 years homesteading here in a fifth wheel with a tin roof over the top, and we had a 50-gallon water thing that filled up just overnight. It filled up. We have that much water accessible to us everywhere, and is there a way that funding could be made and education could be made? Because we just sort of did it ourselves, didn't really know what we're doing. We still don't really know. And if there was a centralized government thing that encouraged people, or even a city thing, where one could go and get information and set themselves up with that sort of thing, we would be streets ahead of other towns.
Nanaimo has a $500 grant, a rebate if you buy a 1,000 US gallon cistern. 1,000 US gallon cistern is about $1,200 right now. So I mean, it's not even half the cost, but it's a start. And that's an interesting point, because what we're doing completely on our own money. But I've talked to families like the sub 40-year-old families who are frustrated because they have to do these conversions. They feel like their children, will need these conversions to their houses, like water. You know what? I thought to save water, composting toilets. We waste so much water on little tiny things, right? But there's a major responsibility for the government to kind of undo the infrastructure that they should have known was not sustainable, because we've been screaming about this for 30 years, what we're supposed to do. And so if the governments have ignored it, all of a sudden that financial burden has to come off, right? Because kids already can't afford a house, and they're trying to, I've met 2 or 3 families in my neighborhood, they're trying to do it, but they just can't afford to do it. So there's
and
that.
they don't fully know what to do, right?
Yeah.
Some of them do, some of them don't. And many people would like to do it, and they have no idea, don't know where to start. And so if you were able to get a government grant, and the city were able to encourage everybody, okay, we'll come out and help you if you do this, they will save money from water being saved. Anyway.
I am going to buy one of those digital water flow meters, because the other thing is we need like a benchmark. How much water am I using for my 1,000 square foot garden? Am I using 70, 80, 140 liters a day? It's one thing to not water your lawn at all, but if every single household in town is watering a garden that's gonna be, it's probably more usage than water in your lawn, right? Would you say? Would you think? Yeah, so water, again, life. Villages were created next to rivers. We gotta think like that. We need, water is like our priority. And then we, again, build up from there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does remind me, there was, I was trolling around the ACRD website just now to see if it was still there, but there was a recommendation from the ACRD's Agricultural Committee, and I thought it had gone through, but they had recommended a program very similar to Nanaimo's that described water cisterns and being able to get rebates to do water storage on your own property in the city or in the valley. So it's that work has definitely been done in town here. So maybe we need to light a fire under some people and try to get that rolling again, because it's definitely happened in the past. There's definitely been those programs out there. So yeah, no, really good points.
And changing the subject slightly, if the city engineer, we've talked about active transportation crossing of Roger Creek, and if nothing else, the city engineer is positive towards it. So maybe that's something we can work on.
Yeah, that reminds me, sort of along the same tangent, John. Whatever happened to the funds and things that you gathered for a suspension bridge across there? Weren't you? Wasn't that you?
It's funny you should mention that. I was having nightmares about that money last night. I couldn't sleep, and I was thinking, God, are we ever going to spend that money? Because there's over $4,000 there. So
and that was for a suspension bridge across 10th to something like that.
Some kind of a bridge, or I mean, it could be used on some other project too, eh?
Yeah.
But that money's been sitting in a trust account for quite a long time, and unfortunately, we're not even making any interest on it, because I guess the interest goes to the trust, the trust account at the accountant.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's still there, and if it could be seed money for a study or something like that, I'll talk to Rob about that, because he and I have talked about that type of a bridge before. I think probably the situation is that he has a lot of priorities on his list right now, but with things the way they are, with this climate emergency, you'd think that there might be funds available someplace, from the government. We're going to have to keep our eyes open for that, and maybe do some campaigning to try to get a program like that. I do think it would have to be a very special type of bridge, because that's quite a long stretch, a long span, and I don't think you'd get me out on a 600-foot suspension bridge, because I'm scared of heights. So it'd have to be more of a solid structure somehow. But we're talking millions anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But like you said, at least that would be something that maybe we could put towards funding a study and actually get it rolling. Because I think that was 2010 maybe. I think that we were talking
at least
about
might have even been earlier, because I think the thing that put the kibosh on it the first time was the financial crisis, and that was 2008. So
that's right.
I think it was shortly before that we did that campaign.
Good. Well, we're well over our 7 o'clock. But Dan, are you showing anything at Char's there today, or do we have anything on online that people can see as far as presentations?
There's a link in the agenda under the education and outreach, and I think at this point that I'm probably going to get on out of here. So
good. Great. Well, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and we will be in touch soon. There's lots of stuff happening. Fall fair. There's elections. There's candidates meetings. All sorts of things. So stay tuned. There'll be lots of stuff. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
So moved.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Chris, for chairing, and Rob, I want to thank you especially because I know that there's a lot of behind the scenes work being a treasurer like you are. So thanks for all your work from month to month.
So,
Absolutely.
Chris, I'll send you the minutes that I take.
Thanks, Dan. Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, good
Have a
night.
wonderful night.
Yep.
Bye.
There's a lot of people that. You should see, it's not just since the Monday I received the report. The arc is being written now by 40-somethings, which are the ones getting wars have been started for less, right? So there's these two, you got these people that don't care or denials, and then you got the people that like are unfortunately it's that like, well, I'm gonna be on, it's your problem now, and that's really demotivating. But
Mike, there's a book called The New Climate Wars.
yeah.
Michael Mann. It's worth reading. And actually, I have a copy of it.
Yeah, okay. I'm just, I started focusing less on the technological aspects of solutions and more on the psychological. Because when have you seen me? I ride around on a car like all day long, city, you know, it's very hilly. And people, I have a little blog, you know, my car. I literally, I was meeting someone new every day with my daughter at the park, and they would always say, I could never do that. And how do you get to the lake? It wasn't like how do you get to work and how do you get groceries. It's how do you get to the lake. Now that told me it's like if my daughter went to the lake for the first time and she wants to go there every day now. You see what happened? It's like an addiction. If I never gave my kid candy or chocolate, she would never care. But now she cares. And now when she gets in a car, she goes, why don't we have a car? And she knows that we get electric cars. Yeah, she says she does. She knows we get an electric car, but I said, why do you want a car? Oh, because it has a roof. Oh, as long as she's not saying it's cold, it's raining, you know, psychological. And I recently discovered this. It was purely by accident. There's a Dutch-American doctor from the turn of the century named Joost Meerloo. Joost Meerloo. I mean, what a strange name. And he wrote a book, and it's a horrible name. Yeah, I want to get it because it's interesting. Rape of the Mind. And he was talking about the propaganda of from the World War, like all the wars for that matter. And he said the only way to overcome tyranny, you know, is to just like separate yourself from it and live in a parallel society. And there was someone had done a video, a little cartoon video where they showed people, and they used the character was a Trump. The person who was the tyrannus with the Trump, and like people were like, sure, whatever you want, but they just started living their own way. They lived off the system. And people say, well, you know, some of my friends and I would think, well, let's go buy a couple acres and live a commune stuff. And I'm like, why don't we just live in our houses and do what we have to do and sort of separate ourselves from an existing system? I mean, we have to use money at the minimum level. Like my wife always says, we'll always have to pay property taxes. Which hurts because I'm paying property taxes for things like, we don't generate very much garbage. We have to pay for the garbage. We have to pay, what was the other thing? Oh, the big, in the Alberni news this week, people were complaining about having to pay for the composting. Did you see that? I already compost, no thank you. But then I don't have a Facebook account. See, I withdrew. No social media. Because, I mean, do you support Facebook now that you know what they've been doing? Like how they allow way too much, let's put it that way. And they make the news for it. But now I lost track. But sorry? Composting is what I wanted to write is that I did some research the other day because I know people who are composting are probably already mostly organic in their produce and stuff. But the people who are going to be forced to do it, they're going to throw in stuff that has antibiotics and pesticides. I found out that antibiotics are compostable, but pesticides and herbicides are not.
Which ones? Yes.
Yeah, the government of California actually had a page dedicated. They said people that had used compost that had residual herbicides had full crops that didn't grow. And I'm like, oh, that would be dangerous. So it's kind of like everything sounds like a good idea. Oh, let's recycle, but you know, remember we had that dinner at Sarah's place and I said, plastic's not recyclable. And then what was the CBC had that article a year later. Yeah, we just burn it, you know, or we send it away. That 10% of plastic that gets recycled, they have to use 90% virgin plastic in that product with the 10. Like, so they're creating, you know,
Consumption is the problem.
it's psychological, right? So that's where we're going back to psychological.
There's a few other things. I think we should do it by nothing.
Oh, yeah.
By nothing.
And my bike's broken off. It was nice to meet you guys.
My pleasure.
Sorry?
My pleasure.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, that book, yeah. I would like to read that book.
I'm in the phone book.
Okay.
Schubert.
Schubert. Not
Schubert. He was a poet,
Not Schubert.
not the composer.
Schubert.
He actually worked with the composer.
Okay. You're the only one.
I think I am.
Okay. If I'll be calling him, do you have that book?
It's 7238282. It's really easy.
Okay, so that's a nice number, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been lending my books out too that I found. The latest book by the guy who wrote 100 Mile Diet. The Day the World Stopped Shopping. Have you heard of it? I've heard of it. Yeah, so I read it. I read it in a few days. It was spectacular because basically you had companies that were supposedly ethical, like Patagonia, and even Levi's saying, "Yeah, we can make a pair of jeans that last a long time, and you don't have to buy it. It goes against our growth pattern, and we'd probably collapse." Well, but he's aware that it had to be done. But he said if we lost 25% of our sales, we'd have to close. And there was a general rule in the book: if people bought 25% less, the economy would collapse. Sometimes that's what has to happen. As long as we feed ourselves before we get to that point.
There's always going to be another economy. It's just a different economy.
Yeah,
That's right. The economy is a construct.
Yeah,
It's
the
a,
economy we have is, yeah.
Well, it allows people to live far outside the boundaries of nature, you know, physics. And it is unfortunate because I read a blog by a lady a year ago. She said, "I realized I would not be here without oil and money because I have a health problem. I wouldn't have been born." And she speculated, and it covered a couple of other people. After I looked it up, said it's possible that there would only be 1 billion people on the planet without oil, but oil allowed us to have the kids, and maybe they're fully healthy and like would have lived in nature. But now all of a sudden we've gone beyond it, right? So it's kind of an awkward situation. The libido's down. Nobody wants to.
So is the sperm count by 50%. So
Oh, yeah, that is gonna be gone.
that's a self-limiting, living is self-limiting.
don't have to worry about that.
Children of men.
Yeah, no, some of us are.
I didn't know it was free vasectomies in Victoria. If here, that's okay. So, to go to Victoria. Yeah, thanks, guys.
Okay, see you.
Schubert. Okay.
So when, if the gleaning project gets settled out, let me know and I might be able to help out with the ladder. You said that the gleaning project needs another 10-foot ladder. Oh,
Did some get stolen or it just wasn't the right size?
No, well, we had 3 ladders, but there were more people than there were ladders. So we got an extra ladder. So we had 2 probably ladders. But certainly, you know, if you want to throw more ladders, I'm sure we'll take.
So there's not enough pickers?
There's not enough pickers. You know, I've had people that find it and attended our and it's never seen it.
Yeah. Yeah, there used to be quite a few. I know a couple of people used to be pickers. A couple of years ago. Probably be encouraged to do it again.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge is that Charlie and I, that are working, I work with, and she works meetings.
Right.
So, you know, 2 classes working after day, and you know, the last year. So,
Yeah.
and this year, you know, we got 5.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I should sign back up again, because I got more fruit, you know, a couple of years ago, I went and there was always more pickers than was needed. So I thought, well, what's the point, because I got all the fruit I need anyway, right, I was doing it. Sarah got me started, you know Sarah? Sarah Thomas.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sarah got me started, I really enjoyed it, met people, but then, too much fruit. So after a while, there's too many people and I don't need the fruit on the clock, so I'll put my name back on the list and maybe. I'll make some time.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Char?
I was going to ask if you wanted to sit on the patio for a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, would you like the usual?
Sure.
Good, okay. Good to see you, so nice to see you. I'm glad you're here.